Hello guys and girls, this is Kentucky. This time take a look at the Shadow Priest. I think in Legion the main strengths of Shadow Priest were the cross-dotting system, the multi-dot cleave stuff, and the single target execute. And on the Battle for Azeroth beta, it is now a slightly weaker in terms of multi-target dotting, but it is much better in terms of AoE. So it is nerfed and buffed. I think it is now about on an average in all situations, except for the execute build with Surrender to Madness, Shadow over Death, and Twist of Fate, which makes it a awesome execute character. So at first, let's take a look on the spellbook. Shadow Priest received Leap of Fate, which is the life grip. I don't think it is a needed change, but definitely it is a useful utility. Mind Blast generates less insanity. I mean way less insanity. Mind Flay generates more insanity, but its duration is also increased, so it just generates the same insanity over a longer duration. We received Mind Seer, which is a old new spell. It is a AoE filler, so you will cross-dot everything with Vampiric Touch and Shadow over Pain, and then use Mind Seers exactly all the time before you have to refresh these two dots. Moving on, we've got Power Revert Fortitude, which is the stamina buff. I don't think this will be the reason why shadows will be included into raids, but we will see. Shadow over Death is removed from basic abilities. Now it is only a talent option, but as I said, it should be used only in the execute talent. Shadow over Pain now lasts only 16 seconds, which is minus 2 seconds compared to the Legion version. Shadow Fiend is increased by 3 seconds in duration, which is great. It is a really good change. And by that also Shadow Fiend and Mindbender is also increased by 3 seconds. Vampiric Embrace is heavily buffed. Now it is on a 2-minute cooldown instead of 3, and it is increased in healing transfer to 85% of any single target shadow spell damage you deal. So it should be a great tool in Mythic Plus and also a useful tool in raiding. Void Eruption is reworked slightly. Now it will explode 10 yards around the target, and not on the targets that are affected by your Vampiric Touch or Shadow over Pain. So it is a slight nerf, but it is also a buff because you don't have to pre-dot everything to just make useful Void Eruptions. You can just Void Eruption anytime you want, and then you can dot everything up. Vampiric Touch is also nerfed a bit. It is now on a 21-second duration only, so it is minus 3 seconds. Moving on, Mastery have been also changed heavily. It scales less, but it also increases much more spells damage than before. So right now it increases the damage of your Shadow over Pain, Vampiric Touch, Mind Dust, Mind Flay, Mind Seer, Void Eruption, and Void Bolt. So basically it is an increase in damage output. Shadowy Appearance are the same. Void Bolt is changed. It only extends dots durations by 2 seconds, which is a, I think, great nerf, because sometimes you will have to refresh your dots during Void Form, which is not a great thing. And Void Form is also nerfed. its spell damage component is reduced by 15%, and the cooldown reduction on Mind Blast is reduced by half, so it is now only 1.5 seconds, and it grants only 0.5% haste every 1 second, which is only half of the Legion one, which is, I don't think that a good thing. It is, I think, a heavy nerf. I mean, the void form changes are heavy nerfs, mainly in terms of single target damage, because on AoE it doesn't really affect that much. But I think haste on items will be much more important than in Legion, because in Legion you can prioritize mastery over haste, but I don't think that in Battle for Azeroth there will be any stats that is more important than haste for a Shadow Priest. So let's take a look on the talents. I would like to tell to you guys that I don't know which is the best talent setup right now, because talents are constantly changing, numbers are also changing, and the way I feel that it plays good is only the AoE talent. And I don't feel like playing the single target talent as good as AoE. So let's take a look on the first row. Fortress of the Mind, Shadowy Insight, and Shadow Word Void. I think as the damage output goes, Shadowy Insight and Shadow Word Void should be the two best, but I suggest using Shadow Word Void because it replaces Mind Blast on a slightly longer cooldown, but 2 charge and more Insanity generation, which is very important. Shadow Insight is just procs the Shadow Word Pain just procs the Mind Blast, and Fortress of the Mind increases Mind Flay and Mind Blast damage and the Insanity generation of these by 20%. But the Insanity generation is better at Void form, Shadow Word Void, than Fortress of the Mind, because it is baked in and you can use Shadow Word Void more often than Mind Blast. So maybe this could be the best option. 30 roll, Body and Soul, Sun Lane, and Minia. Sun Lane is reworked. It now reduces the cooldown on Vampiric Embrace and increases its healing down. I don't think it is useful in any way, shape or form. I think Minia should be your default choice with the Surrender to Madness Execute build, because you will move much faster with this kind of stuff. And Body and Soul should be the default option for almost each and every situation. On the level 45 roll, Twist of Fate, Misery, and Dark Void. Twist of Fate should be used for Execute, or the fights where you will use Shadow Word Death. Misery should be used for cross-dotting, multi-dotting, and smaller target AoE. Dark Void should be used where there is not a long-living trash pack, but you will have to frequently apply Shadow Word Pains, because it deals a roughly good damage to the target and everything around it, and it applies Shadow Word Pain to everything, which is a great AoE stuff. So AoE, cleave, and execute single target stuff. Misery is also good for single target, I have to mention, but Dark Void is only used in AoE situations. Level 60 roll, Last Word, Mind Bomb, and Psychic Horror. I think in this roll, Mind Bomb, because of the 30-second cooldown, should be the default option, but it is now a fear. But it is lasts for 5 seconds, which is, I think, great. So I guess Mind Bomb or Psychic Horror. Don't know which is the best, but definitely Last Word is not worth taking in any scenario, because the reduced cooldown on Silence is just doesn't worth it, because it's still on 30-second cooldown. Moving on, 75. A Suspicious Spirits, Shadow over Death, and Shadow Crash. Shadow over Death should be used in the single target execute scenarios or when you frequently damage targets below 20% health. Shadow Crash generally doesn't worth taking in any scenario. Maybe if they change, increase or decrease numbers, or if they add a slow or a disorient effect to it or anything, it could be good. But currently I think in AoE, Suspicious Spirits, because of the Dark Void, Shadow over Pain application stuff, is way better than Shadow Crash. Of course, Shadow over Death is also good on AoE if you damage a lot of targets below 20% health. And in single target, when you don't really damage targets below 20% health, then Suspicious Spirits can also be a better option for single target with the Misery option as well. Moving on to the 90 tier, Lingering Insanity, Mindbender, and Void Torrent. Void Torrent is the Legion artifact ability. It is a good thing. It stops draining insanity. It requires Void Form as well. It is on a 45-second cooldown. I don't think it is as good as Mindbender, except for the Execute build with Twist of Fate, Shadow over Death, and Surrender to Madness. I think then that is a good ability, but otherwise, mainly for AoE, I suggest that using Dark Void, Suspicious Spirits, and Lingering Insanity, because you can just cross dot with the Dark Void Shadow over Pain application with higher haste values outside of Void Form as well. And for the single target, when then there is not a long execute phase, then there is the Misery, Suspicious Spirits, and Mindbender build, of course with Dark Ascension or Legacy of the Void. I think that's also a very strong talent setup option for single target, but generally for AoE you will use Dark Void, Lingering Insanity. So again, Lingering Insanity mainly for AoE or Mythic Plus. Mindbender is for sustain single target damage when then there is not a huge execute phase. And Void Torrent is the best in execute phases and can be also competitive in other single target situations. Let's take a look on the last row. It is Legacy of the Void, Dark Ascension, and Surrender to Madness. Of course, as I mentioned before, Surrender to Madness is a great option with the execute phase. It is reworked. Now it is a 1 minute buff on a 4 minute cooldown. All your insanity generating abilities generate 100% more insanity, and you can cast while moving, of course with the mania stuff. And then you take damage equal to 90% of your maximum health and cannot generate insanity for 30 seconds. With good healers or healer macros, it should be used in every single target situations because of two reasons. If, for example, if there is a Holy Priest or Resto Shaman, they can instantly heal you back to 100% or very fast heal you back to 100% with a slight risk of dying. But, of course with the good macros and weak auras, then they will notice that you will receive a huge damage and they have to heal you up. But if you don't have these good healers or any issues, then I don't recommend Surrender to Madness in single target fights. Only I suggest it in execute phases when you kill the boss before the Surrender to Madness damage spike comes, so it doesn't matter that you dies. And also the 30 seconds no insanity generation will also doesn't matter, so it is for execute basically. Moving back on to the AoE department, I think Dark Ascension is a awesome stuff because it is a second Void Eruption, basically. And it also triggers Void Form, and also it generates 50 Insanity when you use it, so you have more frequent access to Void Form, exactly double the amount. Because of its 1 minute cooldown, you can stay in Void Form in basic gear roughly for 20-30 seconds or so, and then you use Void Eruption, get into Void Form, lose it, use Dark Ascension to re-enter Void Form, and you should use it mainly with Mindbender, of course, because you can sync these two very well with the same 1 minute cooldown. Void Torrent is not really synchronizes so well with the Dark Ascension talent, so this could be an awesome pair. And if you would like to choose Lingering Insanity, then you should choose Legacy of the Void and play the playstyle as it was with Misery and Suspicious Spirits, as it was in the cross-dotting Legion version of the Shadow Priest. Of course, without the Void Torrent stuff, but with Legacy of the Void, Void Torrent is also an interesting talent choice option. So there is a lot of options. Let's see how it plays with these options. So let's move it here. So basically you will have to apply your dots as a single target, generate some Insanity, and enter Void Form as fast as you can, and generate Insanity as many as you wish. Stop Insanity draining with Void Torrent, and so on and so on and so on. Now that Mind Blast and Void Bolt is desynced, it is much more easy to play this character, and you don't have to wait for the other spell's cooldown to finish, and you also don't waste a global cooldown for the spells. Let's take a look on the Dark Ascension stuff, because that is the more interesting kind of talent setup. Let's just wait some seconds to its cooldown to finish to be able to change talents. So it's now Mindbender. As you can see, just generate some Insanity with Shadow Word Void and Mind Flay. And I say enter, I say refresh dots quickly, and then enter Void Form with Void Eruption and the Void Bolt and the Shadow Word Void. Going on Mind Flay, Shadow Word Void, Void Bolt, Shadow Word Void, another Void Bolt. It is great to see these two desynced. And you end it with the Void Form. Now Dark Ascension, and again. And you should also use your Mindbender here to increase the duration and Insanity generation here. And you also enter again Void Form, refresh dots as needed. Sorry guys, the user interface is not the best for me right now, and I don't feel like moving anything, because you receive a new patch and everything messes up, so I stay with the basic, and it is pretty hard to follow a dot here. So basically that is the Dark Ascension Mindbender kind of stuff. And if you'd like to just AoE dot, you should use the Dark Void stuff with well, Lingering Insanity, but I won't change it now because of the Mindbender and Legacy of the Void. As you can see, Dark Void is pretty good. It deals a shit ton of damage and applies Shadow Word Pain to a lot of targets. And then Mind Seer, which is also a very frequently ticking dot. Very good stuff, and your shadowy apparitions are going towards your Shadow Word Pain targets, which also does a shit ton of AoE damage if you apply a lot of Shadow Word Pains. The more target there is, the more target that Dark Void hits, and the more target that Shadow Word Pain will be applied to. So basically that is it. And then there is the execute phase. Now I didn't do the questline to get access to the other dummies, so I can't demonstrate you the execute phase because I can't use Shadow Word Death and the buff from Twist of Fate. But in this scenario, you should use when you reach the window to Shadow Word Death, or you know that there is 1 minute left from the boss, then you should activate Surrender to Madness and just spam Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death, apply and maintain dots, use as many Shadow Word Voids and Void Bolts and Void Forms as possible during the Surrender to Madness window, of course just as it was in Legion. So I think you will like how play Shadow. I don't feel that the numbers are competitive now, because I tested it out that during the same duration of time, most of the ranged DPS does way more single target and AoE damage than Shadow, but numbers can still be tuned, so I hope they will change something and Shadow will be good. Right now, please guys, try every talent that you can, because I would like to hear some great talent setups for situations, and if you find out that there is a very good or best talent situation exists, then please tell me and I will try it. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked, then please subscribe, because there will be more videos and then you can watch that as well. And see you in the next video, which will be the Elemental Shaman. See you later, bye bye!